Новый день, все как всегда, я люблю.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Goodrum Show with me, Chris Goodrum. As per usual, a big thank you to everybody who watched the previous episode of the show, liked, commented, all that kind of stuff. Very, very much appreciated. Right, so you know February February tends to be the month that sort of the whisky industry begins to wake up. New things happen, new things come along, and well, I mean, because nobody does anything in January. It's, you know, everybody's completely and utterly broke after Christmas, so there's absolutely no point. But of course, here we are, sort of tail end of February, and like I said, new things are coming out. And a couple of weeks ago, my good friend Helen from Mauricio Beverages dropped into the shop and was very excited about a new distillery that they're now distributing. Said, yeah, got given some samples, and I thought that you know, you might like to sort of try them. So that I thought was very, very nice, and I thought ideal episode of the show. And you know, the thing is that sort of nowadays it's, with regards to being a sort of like an agent for a distillery or a wine producer or what have you, it's not just about selling their goods, it's also about promoting the goods as well, and promoting them as a property, and sort of doing YouTube reviews and so on and so forth. And with some certain wine producers, it's about getting their products in the right places, you know, swanky restaurants and so on and so forth. So hopefully today's episode of the show will be helpful, assuming of course Mauricio Beverages want to use it, and of course any comments that I do make in today's episode of the show are wholly my own and have no bearing on the company that employs me, just in case, you know, just saying, as they say. Anyway, so today's distillery is called the Clonakilty Distillery, and was founded in 2016 by the Scully family in West Cork in Ireland, apparently close to the coast. The distillery is apparently driven by a passion for crafting exceptional Irish whiskey. Well, obviously we will be the judge of that, but I will say one thing about their website. It's a lovely website, so please go and sort of check it out. I think what comes through on the website is the passion that they have for distilling, for sort of island and farming and all that kind of stuff. Apparently sort of production at the distillery began in 2019 and have resulted in, you know, numerous awards, including the Best Irish New Make and Young Spirit at the World Whisky Awards of this year. So, well, on the surface it seems like they're doing a good job. Apparently the Scully family are a 9th generation farming family, and have decided that, you know, that they wanted to sort of what was it they said, improve Irish whiskey by harnessing natural elements in a unique and more sustainable way. And we all know that sustainability is the very big buzzword at the moment. And so apparently they they grow and source a heritage variety of barley, although strangely they make no mention of the variety, which I thought was a bit weird, considering that they do seem to go into a fair amount of detail about what they are doing on their website. But, you know, maybe it's not the same, you know, a single heritage variety. Maybe it's whatever they can grow or can get hold of. I don't honestly know that. But anyway, the distillery looks quite smart. It houses 3 copper pot stills, a large wash, and 2 smaller spirit stills. They produce a triple distilled pot still Irish whiskey, so I'm assuming malted and unmalted barley. The wort fermentation is over 100 hours, so obviously they're going for that lovely sort of fruity, estery base spirit, one imagines. They also have a smaller white spirits still, which appears to be, from the pictures, a sort of Holstein still with a double rectifying column, or columns I should say. And the interesting thing, and I will be tasting their vodka, I'm not tasting the gin, not because it's bad, but because obviously I wanted to keep it to 6 samples. The white spirit is quite intriguing because it's fermented from a whey base, which is quite interesting, and I guess it kind of feeds in with their whole concept of sustainability, because obviously whey is a byproduct of the cheese industry. It's generally speaking just discarded after use, so and it contains, you know, a lot of lactose, so, you know, sugars, which is ideal for, I guess, for fermenting and then turning into a spirit. So they because I guess they've got a double column attachment to their white spirit still, I assume they make their entire white spirits from scratch. So they do the sort of like first distillation and then obviously rectify it for their gin and their vodka. So kind of really looking forward to that. The first distiller, I believe, was a chap called Paul Corbett, who originally worked for Teeling and Tipperary whiskey, but the current head distiller is a chap called Oisin McClary, or Mucari. I do apologise for murdering the pronunciation of your name. And he apparently began his distilling career at Dingle in 2018. So I don't know whether he's got this kind of same thing about... I remember when I visited the St George's distillery, and David Fitt was the head distiller there, who had a little bit of an issue with the fact that obviously the distillery was set up, and it was Ian What's-His-Face from Lefroy was the original distiller there, and of course obviously all the labels had his signature and stuff on it, and I remember he had a little bit of an issue, shall we say, with people always thinking about it was his rather than David's spirit at the end of the day. But so I don't know whether Oisin is like that or not, but anyway, it's just I found that sort of quite sort of like quite amusing to a certain extent. But anyway, so like I said, distillery's been in production for since 2019. When the distillery first came online, they did the usual thing and purchased spirit, you know, from the usual suspects, one would imagine, and bottled it under their own label. But as far as I'm aware, all the spirits in their range contain, you know, spirit that's been distilled or sourced grain, shall we say. So all the malt is their own, and obviously it can only be a maximum of 4 to 5 years old, so going to be fairly young, but you know, could be really intriguing. The final thing to say about the distillery kind of feeds back into the whole sustainability thing, and apparently they are very much committed to social and environmental responsibility. They support a number of initiatives in Ireland and globally, including sponsoring the whale and dolphin conservation charity. Apparently you'll see why the gin and the vodka is called Minke, because I believe Minke whales are often seen in the close to the distillery, and I believe they've also called the still a Minke still, which I probably should have called it a dinky still, but Minke, yeah, that's cool. So apparently they are very much gold members of Origin Green, which is Ireland's national sustainability programme for the food and drinks industry, and obviously it doesn't kind of have any real sort of bearing to a certain extent, on the quality of the spirit, but you know, very much current sort of young consumers are very much into the whole sustainability, and let's be honest, you know, distilleries use an awful lot of fuel and power, and you know, if you're going to sort of do it responsibly and sustainability, it's got to be a key. It's got to be built into sort of like these the newer distilleries. So anyway, I think that's enough waffling about the distillery. Like I said, you can find out obviously a lot more information on their website, and the address is obviously in the box below. So let's take a look at today's one. Right, okay, so obviously I haven't got any new make. Would love to have tasted some new make, but obviously I'm going to have to make do with their vodka. So like I said, this is produced from whey, so it's whey alcohol, and distilled in their small still, the Minke still, and bottled at 40%. So the first of the whiskies is batch number 2 of their single Irish pot still. Like I said, it's 100% locally sourced barley. It's triple distilled. It's aged in a combination of ex-bourbon and ex-amontillado cask. So I imagine the end product that's in the glass is a vatting of spirit aged in both of those both those cask types, and I believe this was distilled in sort of 2019, so we're looking at 4 or 5 year old spirit. The second bottling we're looking at is called the Clonakilty Double Oak Blended Irish Whiskey. It's bottled at 43.6%. It's a combination of their own pot still malt and a single grain. Doesn't say where the single grain came from, but I imagine, well, I don't know, maybe it's Irish single grain. I think if it was Irish single grain they would have probably stated it was Irish single grain, but it's single grain nevertheless. Anyway, don't know the sort of the percentage of malt to grain, but it's aged in a combination of ex-bourbon, ex-virgin American oak and ex-STR casks, and like I said, bottled at 43%, so looking forward to that one. The next bottling we'll be looking at again is another blended Irish whiskey. This time it's called Galley Head Rhum cask. It's bottled at 40%, and this is indeed again their own pot still spirit, and this time it states it's Irish grain whiskey, so again sourced, one assumes, aged in ex-bourbon and ex-agricole rum casks, so again I'm assuming a vatting of both of those casks. Then we're kind of bouncing around between blends and grains, and it's a bit of a, you might think it's a bit of a weird way around it, but I think this is going to work. So this is, the next bottling is the Galley Head single malt Irish whiskey, so 40% ABV, and again the same cask makeup as the blend, so ex-bourbon and ex-agricole. And the final bottling of the day, unfortunately, is not a peated one, which is a bit of a shame, but never mind. This is the Port Cask Finish Blended Irish Whiskey, bottled at 43.6%. Again, it's their own pot still Irish whiskey and a grain whiskey. Again, doesn't say Irish, so could be Scottish possibly, and it's aged in a combination of ex-bourbon and ex-port casks. So obviously, as you can possibly see from the colours, they're all fairly light. So with them not being finished rather than with them being sort of vatted rather than finished, obviously the head distiller Oyster has obviously got complete control over the amount of the cask finish component. So hopefully, they'll be really well balanced. But before we get to the whiskey, we're going to kick off with a bit of Right, okay, so let's look at the Minke vodka then. So 40% ABV. Always nice to sort of like get a white spirit in, because I mean nobody buys them anymore, but well, certainly not from us anyway, but let's it's always fun to sort of look at them. So let's see what the nose gives us. Okay, well, it's got plenty of character. It's got lots of that sort of soft, milky, creamy character. There's a little bit of pepper. There's a little bit of sour fruit. It's got character. It's got complexity to a certain extent. I mean, vodka is never renowned for a sort of oodles of complexity, but the nose is well made, and at the end of the day, I'm always looking for sort of like any white spirit to give me an indication of what it's been made from. And even if I didn't know it was, produced from whey, I would have certainly picked up on the sort of the creaminess and what have you, and I might have thought maybe it's kind of the grains that they're using, possibly wheat, although it doesn't really come across as wheaty, but it has character, and that's really cool. Let's see what that passes on. Very much like the nose, soft, creamy. It's got a lovely mouthfeel to it. It's got some sour fruit, a little bit of pepper. I think for a vodka that's perfectly good. Can't remember what the sort of the retail price for that is, but can't imagine it's huge. And if you like your vodkas, it certainly sort of ticks all the right boxes. I know a lot of people tend to use them as mixers and what have you, and I guess it would probably work quite well as a mixer. Obviously I'm the wrong person to ask about that because I'm a bit of a purist, but I think from a spirit perspective, I think the spirit is really nice and clean. It's really very, very good. It's got complexity to a certain extent, and it certainly has character. So, nice starter, I think. Okay, so time to move on to the single pot still. This is batch number 2. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? Quite herbal, cereally, youthful, oily banana, banana skin, apricot, some vanilla. It's nice and juicy. There's a little bit of sherry, not a huge amount. It's got a sort of a light sherry note. Certainly it's not in the sort of like the bold herbal Oloroso style. It has that sort of lighter sherry kind of character. A little bit of white chocolate, some orange. Lovely, really very pleasant. Got some lovely complexity. Yeah, that's a very, very nice nose. So it pass that. Ester, fruity, banana-y, got some herbal barley. There's a lovely nip there. The pot still nip is definitely noticeable. Adding a little bit of spice as well. There's some sherry dried fruits coming through primarily after the mid palate and into the finish. Nice intensity, juicy, fruity, full, a really nice quality spirit at the end of the day. Yes, it's youthful, but I don't think it's too youthful. I'm certainly getting no faints or off notes. ABV is good, it's got lovely intensity. It's just a really good all-round Irish pot still whiskey at the end of the day. That's cool. Okay, so let's move on to the double oak blended Irish whiskey. So ex-bourbon American oak or virgin American oak and STR cask. There's quite a fair amount of oak, it has to be said. Vanilla, toffee, apricot, apple. Got some grippy tannins. The STR tannins are quite grippy. A little bit of winey red fruit. It's okay. The grain component is coming through a little bit. It does take some time to come through, so it does seem to imply that there's a good percentage of malt in this. Could be almost 50-50. A little bit of grilled nuts. Yeah, okay. It's a pleasant enough nose, it has to be said. Let's see what passes on. Soft vanilla, a little bit of grippy oak tannin. I will say it lacks a little bit of intensity on the mid palate. It's all very kind of nice, quite creamy, nice finish, pot still, sort of a bit more head grain notes coming through on the finish. It has that sort of grainy dried fruit, the vanilla. It's okay. Like I said, it does seem to sort of like, and I would have thought personally 46% would have been better. 46% non-chill filtration, because I mean 43.6 it would have been filtered. I think that has stripped away some of the intensity and the character of this. So if you're going to do it at 43, why not just an extra sort of 2 and a bit percent, you know, 3%, you know, that would have made, I think, all the difference to that. But as it is, it's okay. Okay, so let's move on to the Galley Head rum cask blended Irish whiskey. So let's see what the nose gives us on this end. Quite young, a lot younger than the previous two. I'm certainly getting their pot still character coming through, that sort of oily banana skin and slight herbal notes. It's a little bit more edgy. There's a subtlety of agricole notes. It's not screaming agricole rum in my face. There's a little bit of tropical fruit, a little citrus, a little creamy American oak. It's all, again, very nice, but it's 40% and it's kind of nice, pleasant, you know. So it passes on. Right, well, it kicks off with the sort of the pot still character again, the oily banana, the herbal sort of spices, the barley. There's a little bit of vanilla coming through on the mid palate. There's a little bit of agricole rum. It's again pleasant and nice and really lacking some serious intensity. It has to be said. 40% is doing it absolutely no favours whatsoever. Yes, I can taste a bit of rum cask, but just a bit. You know, I would like to see a little bit more intensity of rum character, not to the detriment of the balance, you understand, but I think the sort of, if this blend, if this had been bottled at 46%, you'd have got that more intensity, you'd have got that lovely sort of spiciness on the end, maybe a bit of mouth-watering citrus, and it would have gone, oh yeah, that's kind of doing the business. But as it is, it's not quite doing the business. It's very nice, it's pleasant, it's polite, it's well made, it's well distilled, but at the end of the day there is that kind of like elephant in the room, shall we say, and I'm not talking an elephant shark in the room. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Galley Head single malt, again aged in bourbon and ex-rum casks. More malty, obviously, more fuller, more richer, more tropical fruits, pepper, again, oily banana, vanilla. Not getting the huge amount of rum cask again, it's very, very subtle. There's a little bit of a herbal agricole note just on the edges, and I, if you didn't know that this was an agricole rum, or had some agricole rum matured spirit, I think you'd quite easily miss it. Again, the nose is lacking the intensity. It's 40%. I really don't understand why this hasn't been bottled even at 43.6. There's obviously a reasoning for that, and I don't know whether that's basically price point. I don't know. Again, it's pleasant, it's nice, it's well made. And you know, again, the elephant shark is there in the room. Let's see what it passes like. Soft, fruity, fleshy, apricot. Again, the pot still character is certainly noticeable. The oily banana skin. That lovely sort of nip on the finish, but the nip would have just been enhanced if you'd have bottled it at 46%. It would have really nipped, and you'd have got the citrus, and you'd have got the intensity, and you know, and it's all just very nice again. You know, I really, you know, it's well made, but it's just lacking intensity, and all that takes is just to up the ABV, in my opinion. Right, and finally we're on to the port cask. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? Again, quite young, quite youthful. There's that sort of edgy port character, that edgy, slightly herbally port character. A little bit of American oak, a touch of red fruit, coffee, wood spice. And again, I'm just going, God, this could have done with being at 46%. Okay, it's got a little bit more intensity because it's 43.6, and you know, I feel like I'm a bit of a kind of a stuck record on this, but it is just so important for me, you know, and not just me, for a lot of consumers as well. There's probably a lot of consumers that are perfectly happy with this. Obviously, the distillery is quite happy with this. The head distiller is happy at bottling this at 43.6, but Let's do it, pass right. Soft, full, again, it's got that lovely sort of, you know, the lovely pot still characters coming through, the sort of fleshy apricot. There's a little bit of straw, a little bit of red fruits, a little bit of portiness. And again, I have to say that the balance is exceptionally good. I would even go as far as saying possibly it could have done with a little bit more portiness. But again, it's lacking intensity. It's pleasant. It's got a nice spiciness. But if that had been bottled at 46%, that spiciness would have been intensified on the finish, and that sort of nip and that citric note would have come through with a little bit more intensity, and you'd have gone, oh, that's good. But as it is, it's pleasant. It's nice. Right, okay, so that's on today's episode of the show. Firstly, as always, a big thank you to Helen from Mauricio Beverages for the samples for today's episode of the show. You know, I think that there's like I said, there's the elephant whale in the bloody room, and the elephant whale is 46% at the end of the day. I think that the distillery overall is doing some really good stuff. It's producing a really good quality spirit. I don't think you can argue with that. I really think they ought to rethink their bottling ABV and bottle everything at 46%. Obviously the vodka can stay at 40%. You know, it is what it is. It's a pleasant vodka. I like the concept. Nobody buys vodka anymore. Well, certainly as far if I sell a bottle of vodka every 2-3 months, that's going well. And the thing is that sort of like, you know, I think consumers look for intriguing vodkas still. And you know, I think that's a good vodka at the end of the day. Lots of character, and I like the sustainability and all that kind of stuff. The pot still Irish whiskey that they produce is really good, and this should be the blueprint for everything they do. And it's non-chill filtered, it's 46%, it has intensity, it has softness, it's a really good quality spirit. And yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I really don't understand at all. The double oak, although, you know, it's well, I suppose you can say it's two oaks. I mean, it's the ex-bourbon and Virgin American oak and SGI. Again, really nice balance, and this just shows you that what the distillery are doing, what Oisin is doing, blending wise, is absolutely spot on. It's really nicely balanced. The distillery character is front and centre and augmented. It's just the ABV at the end of the day, and that's a real shame. And I think I can say just exactly the same thing about the final three, and I probably will do. Like I said, balance is really great. Sort your ABV out, in my opinion, and you will have an even better quality product. Anyway, that's my honest opinion, and you know, I like it. I like the distillery. I like everything that they're doing. I just think that, you know, just the tweaks with the ABV, and I think sort of everything will be sort of absolutely wonderful. Anyway, whether the distillery do that or not, I don't know. Probably not, because they're probably going to, who the hell's this guy? What does he know about whiskey? Anyway, but give it a shot. You know, certainly buy the pot still. Absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I think that's really, really good. So until next week, no idea what we'll be reviewing next week. All that's left to say is good afternoon and good dramming.
Красок нет, все как всегда. Ты мой крест, мне нести тебя. Я прошу, отпусти меня. Жизнь прошла без